we were just talking about this. You know, the car that you wanted when you were growing up. And a lot of people people call it a midlife crisis, but it's just you have the money at what people would consider your midlife. And then, you know, at 26, you can't buy your dream car. At 50, you might be able to, and we call it a midlife crisis. The car you wanted when you were a teenager, Fitzy, was what?
It was an electric blue IROC Z that had that eagle on the front. I loved that.
Was that an eagle or was that a Firebird?
Maybe it was a Firebird. Yeah, I guess it was more of a Firebird.
Was it?
It was like gold with the wings. Yeah. But yeah, the specifically electric blue IROC, I thought that was hot.
Seton?
I always liked Porsches.
Yeah.
But when I was real young, I always thought a 911 was the coolest thing. But getting a little older, like a Speedster, those are pretty great convertible.
Paulie?
Mid-70s red Corvette. Boom.
McLovin?
Something where the doors open upwards.
Ooh,
like
the Gullwing. Yeah. Yeah, I wanted a big block. I wanted one of those muscle cars because I grew up with guys who had muscle cars, like Chevelle, 396 Chevelles, Roadrunners. Like I had some guys who had some great cars. Nick Saban set to join us, Continental Tire Coach's Corner. Let me start with that question there, Coach. Growing up in high school, what was the car that you wanted?
Well, I worked at my dad's service station, so I used to see from the time I was 11 years old. So every time a hot car came out, whether it was a GTO or the, 442 Cutlass Supreme, or, you'd see some kind of, Mercedes 280 SL go by, you were like, wow, man, I'd love to have a car like that someday. But my favorite car growing up was the Jaguar XK E12 or whatever that had the wire wheels, the two-seat convertible. That was probably my all-time favorite.
Did you ever buy one of those cars that you wanted when you were a teenager?
Yeah, I eventually did. And, probably made some financial mistakes doing it, but you live and learn.
Wait, what'd you buy?
When they stopped making in 1973, which I think might have been in my first year of coaching, they stopped making the Jaguar XKE. So there was only like 25 left in the country. So I said, I'm going to get one of these. I'll never be able to get one again. So I could afford that like a hole in the head, So.
Are you good with your cars? I mean, do you do all your work since you worked in a garage?
Not anymore. I think that, I know enough to get one started when it won't start and things like that. But, the technology on cars is completely different now with all the computerization of, and technology. It doesn't even, these things don't even have carburetors anymore, so it's completely different. And so, having the two Mercedes dealerships are part of them. I don't have anything to do with them, but I drive those cars, and the technology on those, I can't even figure out how to do anything except turn the radio on and off.
Do you binge watch TV?
Not really. I guess my favorite thing to do is I do watch ESPN. I like to catch up on what's happening in sports. Maybe long enough to get the news, primarily. But, Terry and I like to get an old Netflix series or something. And the way I work, whenever I'm home for an hour, we can watch an episode. So that's kind of how we operate. And that may go on for months. So that's about how it goes with us.
What TV show on Netflix?
Oh, whatever we can find that's good. Peaky Blinders is one that we watched.
Right.
Rain. We like historical things, old-fashioned things. She used to record the old English movie where they lived in the big castle. I don't even remember the name of it.
Is that Downton Abbey?
Downton Abbey, yeah. Terry likes that stuff, so I kind of, I get home 10:30 at night. I have 45 minutes to chill out before I go to bed. That's kind of what we do.
What do you think when you see yourself, though, on ESPN? Do you watch yourself if they show clips of you at a press conference?
No, I change the channel.
How would you describe your relationship with the media?
Well, I guess to really get that idea, you'd have to ask some of the media folks. But I think with some people I have really good relationships with. They have a pretty good understanding of who I am, what I'm all about, why I do things the way we do them. And then there's other people who probably aren't so pleased with it. And I think that sort of goes with the territory. But the one thing I do try to do with the media is, which there was a time when I first became a head coach where I didn't realize the importance of this, is, be very respectful of the job that they're trying to do and appreciate that, that they sort of are the link to the fans and provide a lot of information and create a lot of interest, for our sport and the players who play it. So we always try to be very respectful of that group.
He's Nick Saban, Alabama head coach, joining us, Continental Tire Coach's Corner. But I was trying to understand your press conference the other day when you sort of went off on a variety of topics, and it had to do with, your linebacker, Christian Miller. And then I was told by a college football reporter who said, you misread Nick. He was having fun with those members of the media. Were you having fun?
Yeah, I think sometimes, my sense of humor is mistaken. It's amazing to me, and I don't really think it's fair to the players. So, I think one of the things that especially our local media does is, they create this tremendous expectation for, some of our players, young players who come in with reputations, players who have been in the program that they, immediately set an expectation for that this guy's going to be a phenomenal player, but the guy really hasn't ever played yet. Well, I think two things. I don't think that's fair to the player because I think it creates an unrealistic expectation, and it creates a lot of anxiety for some of these guys. So I kind of get on the guys for doing that. I mean, in a way, in a fun way. I know their job, and they're creating some news and interest in the player, but I also think sometimes that's unfair for the player.
But it's a compliment to you, Coach.
Well, but I'm not so much worried about me as I am, the players that play on our team and how we can help them be successful personally, academically, and athletically. And I don't think sometimes people realize how these guys are just college student athletes and how they get affected by, things that are out there. And there's a lot of social media, but there's a lot of media that create some of these, images and expectations. And look, I realize it's a blessing to be the coach at Alabama. It's a blessing to be a player here. It's a blessing to have the opportunity to get an education, do the things, playing the kind of games we play in. But there also is a burden that comes with all that, in terms of your responsibility to represent it in a first-class way. And hey, we all accept that, and I want our players to accept that. So, but I also don't want them to create a lot of anxiety about it or expectations that are created for them.
Describe your level of interest with the solar eclipse today.
Not much. It's going to be I know there's a lot of interest. It's going to go right over our house at Lake Burton in Clayton, Georgia. We may be the only empty house at the lake. It's going to last for 2 minutes, and I'm sure it'll be a memorable experience for a lot of people, and then everybody's going to say, that's it.
Did you see the poll on CBS Sports that had you the second most overrated coach behind Jim Harbaugh? Anonymous coaches poll. Did you even hear about this, and do you even care? I mean, what was your reaction to that?
Well, first of all, I probably agree with that. I mean, the success that we have is really contributed to by a lot of people. I mean, we have really good coaches. We got a really good, staff of people who work with the players. We've had a tremendous amount of really, really good players who have made a tremendous commitment, to a standard of excellence that, has created a lot of success here. So I feel like I get far too much credit for that. So I would probably tend to agree with whoever voted that way, to be honest with you.
I'll leave you with this. Would you rather ease into the season, or I know you're not easing into the season this year with Florida State, but traditionally, teams would ease into the season. That's not happening anymore. What do you think of that philosophy?
Well, we've had that philosophy now for 10 years. Ever since we've been here, we've opened up in one of these, sort of national games that at first when we were here, because we didn't have a really good program, I thought it was important to get a lot of exposure. But what I learned from the games is when you play a really good opponent the first game is the players are much more interested in the off season, the spring practice, summer conditioning, fall camp preparation. Everybody has their attention because of who they're playing in the first game. When I say everybody, I'm talking about internally as coaches in terms of helping them develop. And I do think that it lets you know, where you are as a team, what you need to improve on because you played a really good team. Sometimes, even though it's a big game, much better not to have success early in the season than later on.
True.
So this can sort of put a good perspective for every individual on your team as to what you need to do to have the kind of team you want to have.
Coach, have fun today. Keep stirring it up with the media there. We appreciate your time.
Okay, Dan. Thank you, buddy.
Okay.
See you. Bye-bye.
It's Coach Nick Saban there. Yeah, Paulie.
Did he call you buddy at the end?
He might do that for everybody. I don't know. I don't know.
That's what I thought I heard.
Maybe not the local media in Alabama. Continental Tire Coach's Corner. Continental Tire, the official tire of Major League Soccer. Soccer fans expect peak performance on the pitch and also demand peak performance on the street as well. That's why Continental has built a tire for what you do. No matter what you're doing, they've got the best tire for you. The best-in-class wet braking, superb handling tires. Continental Tire, proud supporter of the Dan Patrick Show. Visit ContinentalTire.com for more.
The Dan Patrick Show, weekday mornings on Audience.